firefighter in the last 10 years has definitely shifted. I'd say we go to less fires. We attend a lot more RTCs, road traffic collisions these days. When you get to a severe collision, it can be a chaos. Cars, parts up the road, 50, 100 yards up the road, engine blocks, doors taken off, wrapped round trees. It's quite horrific, to be honest, at times.
Around 5,000 children under the age of 16 die or are seriously injured on Britain's roads each year.
We deal with any fatal, life-changing or serious road traffic collisions. There's nothing worse than going to somebody's door to tell them that unfortunately their loved one isn't coming home. That is one of the hardest parts of our job. When you're dealing with somebody who's been taken round the wheels of an HGV, when you're dealing with that child that's been run over because they didn't realise that they couldn't cross the road and they've run out from their parents' hands, when you're actually picking up body parts of people, that is the worst part of our job.
The minimum stopping distance you can expect if you travel at 20 miles an hour is 3 car lengths. Increase your speed to 30 miles per hour and the stopping distance is at least 6 car lengths, twice as far.
I'm a local ward sergeant for South Yardley and I work with my team of police officers and police community support officers to gauge what's important to the communities that we serve. By and large, they tell us the things that matter to them are speeding, motoring offences or the antisocial use of vehicles on their roads. So that could be anything from parking up and playing loud music, that could be people speeding, that could be people racing. The people that we canvass are saying speeding around schools causes them concerns because of the obvious dangers. There's 20 mile an hour speed limits around most of Birmingham's schools. I would say, in fact, probably all of the schools. They're there for a reason.
Anybody can be a victim to a road traffic collision, and that is someone who's going 30 miles an hour, someone who is not wearing a seatbelt, and of course, someone who's distracted.
I'd say the most common cause of road traffic accidents these days is mobile phones. That's the 9 out of 10 incidents that I attend. I think I could put down to the person driving was distracted using some form of communication.
You're 4 times more likely to crash if you're using a mobile phone while driving.
Stuart was a kind, generous person and he loved life. He'd be out with his friends and he loved sport. No trouble whatsoever, really.
He was just 17, I think it was 2 weeks after his 17th birthday. He'd gone to Blackpool and there were 8 of them, 5 girls and 3 lads from Sutton College. Those that were able to, I dropped down at Digbeth coach station on the Friday morning, went off, and later in the day he rang, and then he rang again on Saturday saying they were having a lovely time and so forth, and that was it. And in the early hours of Sunday morning we had a phone call from the hospital at Blackpool, Victoria there, to say that he'd been involved in a serious road accident. Would we go up?
They asked us to go down to in Blackpool, this was. So we put some things in a bag and we're on our way to Blackpool in a state of shock, really, not knowing what we were going to.
By all accounts, Stuart and the group were crossing the road on the prom there, crossing over. As this chap came onto the promenade from the wrong direction, the traffic coming up the conventional way were at the traffic lights on halt, and he careered off the road, hit Stuart, and then carried on for 13 or 14 miles, where he then ran out of petrol and the police arrested him. Stuart had obviously been dragged and then thrown and then left for dead as he sped off.
Apparently, the car was going so fast, hit Stuart, and Stuart went over the car. And they said it was like a shaking of the brain.
Stuart obtained serious head injury, which of course effectively became brain damage, and a broken jaw.
He was on life support and he was in a really bad way, and they said he might not survive the accident.
He He'd gone from being an active young lad to someone lying on a stretcher, on a trolley, unconscious with probes and things all over his head and on his chest and so forth, and really just a shell of the person we knew.
Horrible, really. We're really upset because you couldn't believe it was your son. You know, you don't think these things are going to happen to yourself. You always hear of other people, don't you? So it's really horrible.
I can't really remember anything because, see, obviously after I got run over, knocked down, I was in a coma for a long time.
You had to learn to breathe again, to speak again, to eat through the mouth.
I know inside, I know what I want to do. Obviously, it's both say and do, but I feel like something is holding me back.
You're angry in as much as you wonder why. You ask yourself why this need. I mean, as I say, he was never a bad lad, never any trouble whatsoever. He was always keen on sport, football, outdoors, etc. Not interested in trouble in any way.
Because of me going to Blackpool just for the weekend, I'm not only destroy my own life, but obviously my parents, I feel like everything is my fault in that way. I've lost my independence, and I would have loved to have like looked after my parents in their older age, but I feel like they're looking after me now.
By drinking and driving, you risk your life, those of you passengers and others on the roads.
We get to a road traffic collision, we've got numerous bits of equipment we use straight away, and depending on what type of collision it is, we've got a lot to choose from to extricate that person, to cut the car up. More severe RTCs, the car will crumple. People's legs may be trapped by the whole body. So we have to look and assess where the impact site is, see where we need to make space. We call it space creation, and we'll just go in, quick judgment from the officer in charge and the team, and get them out as quick and as safe as we can.
Seatbelts save lives. Make sure you wear yours.
I and my colleagues see the worst parts of life. What always amazes me is when people will have seatbelts on and worry about their own seatbelts, but never worry about their children's seatbelts. People don't realise that a child in the back seat or standing in the front of a vehicle is a projectile missile. Those children really travel when they go through windscreens, and as a police officer, to have to deal with a road death which involves a child is one of the most serious and the most harrowing things to deal with.
Young male drivers have much higher crash rates than young female drivers.
Sarah was a very kind, considerate person. She was 26 years old. When she left school, she did 2 years at sixth form. Then she went to De Montfort University in Leicester for 3 years and delivered 42 babies. She was training as a midwife. She was so kind, she was pretty. She absolutely loved her family and her sisters. And Sarah lived together with Claire in separate flats, but in the same house. It was July the 28th. Claire and Sarah had gone to visit a younger sister, Hannah, who was staying at our house at the time. And they left about, I think it was probably about 20 to 6 on the evening, and went to the shop in the Co-op, the Walsall Road in Great Barr. bought a few things, and they were going to catch the bus. And they stopped on the side of the road, looked down the hill, which they were taught to look from when they were little. Saw a car coming way down the road, but it was in the left-hand lane to turn, which would have been onto Tower Hill. And as they were 2/3 of the way across the road, Sarah says to Claire about the bus. Oh, the bus is definitely running. So Claire looked down the road. She didn't see anything coming. She turned to Sarah, said a few words, and as she turned, the car hit them. We believe Claire caught her handbag on the wing mirror, and she was spun around and caught all her legs on the car, and Sarah was hit in the legs, threw on the bonnet, hit her head on the window screen, threw about 30 foot into the air and about 30 foot down the road. Sarah was bleeding a lot from her head. A lot of people crowded around Sarah. There was a nurse that came to her aid that was in the opposite traffic, and she stroked Sarah's hair and stroked her face as she took her last breaths. Claire shouted Sarah, but she couldn't get to her because her legs were injured. And Sarah had her back to her, and she didn't know that Sarah had died. They couldn't save Sarah. They worked on Sarah for about 20 minutes, but she'd already died. There was no hope of saving her. Her injuries were so horrendous that there's no way they could have saved her. Just screamed Sarah as loud as I could. Not my Sarah. It can't be real. Sarah's not dead. Sarah can't be dead. She's my baby, one of my babies. How can Sarah be dead? Those things don't happen to people like me. He was doing an average speed of 64 miles an hour, but he actually hit Sarah at about 70 miles an hour because he put his foot down to try and squeeze through about a metre gap. Why go that fast? He was still going to get to wherever he was going, so why risk anyone's life in an area where there are pedestrians and school children crossing? He had no thought for anyone else but himself. He's now took one of our precious things away from us. He's took Sarah's life away from her. You know, and what for? Just to get somewhere, 5-10 minutes faster?
I'm saying to you, when you get in that car, please just think, take a little bit of time and think, not only for yourself, but other members of the public.
Let's say to those drivers that are speeding, please slow down and observe those regulations that are there to protect us all. If you're speeding near a school, don't forget, you could have 300 pupils walking to school with carers and parents. That's a lot of people going to one place at one particular time. Please consider those people.
Take heed of these rules and regulations because they're there to help you, they're there to keep you out of trouble. And remember that the faster you go on the road, you sometimes go beyond your capabilities, and round the corner you're liable to meet a tree or a lamppost or another vehicle head on.
It is perfectly true. Speed kills, and you shouldn't have ever speed really, because we are only humans.
You don't get used to it. You know, I'm only human. We're all humans on the fire engine. We're not superhuman. You know, we go home to our families and we think about it as well. And when we try and put the safety message out there for people to stop texting, stop phoning and just drive slower, it's because we see the aftermath, we see the consequences of the dangerous driving, and it's horrible.
Would you want to live with killing somebody or severely injuring them where they've got no life left or they have to struggle for the rest of their life? Would you really want to do that just for a few minutes of arrogance and, you know, selfishness? Take away someone's life and ruin their families. You know, just think about what you're doing. When you get in that car, you have to be responsible for everybody around you.